Hello, everyone, and welcome to this event in partnership with Syracuse University. My name is Stefania, and I will be moderating this webinar on behalf of Toxicity. So I see here that our first participants have joined us, so a warm welcome to all of you. We're just going to wait a few minutes before we dive into our session to ensure that everyone can have a chance to connect. So in the meantime, don't hesitate to say hi or introduce yourself in the chat here on Zoom. And furthermore, we're curious to know where are you joining us from. So please take a moment to share your location in the chat. Thank you for being here today. We will start shortly. And in the meantime, I also wanted to inform you that we got a Q&A session lined up after the presentation. So this is your chance to ask your questions to our panelists. So don't be shy, go ahead and type all your questions and curiosities in the Q&A box. We will be thrilled to answer them as soon as possible. If you're interested in receiving a certificate of attendance issued by Doxity, please stay tuned because we will provide more information after this presentation. So in today's webinar, we will discover Professor Reddic's educational and professional journey, learn more about the teaching methodologies for data analytics and accounting courses, and finally, how to foster the forever orange spirit. So as you can see, I will not be alone today. Here with me, there are Shri, Assistant Director and Graduate Recruitment at Syracuse University's Whitman School of Management, and Willie, Associate Professor of Accounting and Associate Dean for Business Education at Syracuse University Whitman School of Management. So thank you for all of you for being part of this event, and thanks for everyone. So without further ado, let's get started. Shri, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It is yet another collaboration with Doxity and the Whitman School of Management, and I'm pleased to bring to you yet another interesting guest panelist today, Professor Willie Dion Reddic, also the new incoming Associate Dean for Business Education. This will be your first cohort of welcoming students as Associate Dean during the fall 2024 orientation. Welcome. And let's talk about the person behind the personality, if that's even right to say, right? So let's start off with some general, very simple question in terms of what's your idea about education? What are your viewpoints on that?
God, already getting curveballs this early. Honestly, I think simple. Education is extremely important, right? I think education just overall is a way to transfer knowledge. I think as a society, that's what actually makes us strive, is transferring this knowledge. So education is essential. Hell, that's the major reason why I'm actually in the profession that I'm in. So I want to, I ultimately, when I think of questions pertaining to anything related to education, I always think about kind of not just the value added proposition in terms of where is it going to get me in terms of my future. So overall, I think education is essential of life.
Okay, so we do agree on that. So I think that's a good start for us. And some of the audience members I know are students who have been admitted to Whitman, and so they are getting to meet you, if you will, via this session. And then of course there is a global audience which is also listening in, and so they are getting an understanding. We do value education in its overall and overarching sense, not just as a means to an end of get a degree, get a job kind of a situation. So let's look at your own trajectory in that sense, because that's why I wanted to set the stage. You started with a bachelor's in information systems.
Yeah.
And currently you are associate professor of accounting, and midway somewhere in there, you went into earning a degree in finance, as well as doing some courses in economics and ultimately a doctorate degree. So do you want to walk us through what was going on in building that trajectory?
You would think that I like school so much.
I was about to say.
No, it's weird when thinking about it. I don't actually look at it as in terms of having multiple degrees. I look at it in terms of phases in my essentially in terms of my life. So As you said earlier, I got my undergrad in management for information system and computer science. It was like a dual program at Chico State. And I was always fascinated with technology. And so because I was fascinated in technology, I wanted to understand. I just basically was one of those people that just wanted to program, be left alone, etc. But based on my charming personality, I realized that the decisions are made in business. So because of that, I first pivoted by kind of backtrack. I was a senior architecture for a company called Anderson Consulting. I'm kind of dating my age, but now they're called Accenture. So I kind of going back, I was one of their senior architectures, and I decided that I wanted to understand the business side of it. So I decided to start my own company, did that for a couple of years, and then I pivoted to getting a master's in finance. And the reason why I did finance because I assumed in business that's where the money is. And so hence that's what I did. And then after I think Goldman Sachs was recruiting, and so I'm walking in the halls and I kind of felt like I didn't think I wanted to go back to corporate. Mm-hmm. And so essentially a couple of mentors that I had in my career were like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I think I want your job. And from there, that's kind of how the wheels started turning in terms of me pursuing the PhD. Needless to say, Tim, one of our colleagues, he indicated that it's warm. That's kind of was a selling point for me coming to Syracuse. Was the dean sit me out in like a nice April and it was 73 degrees, and he said, "Oh, you want to come?" And I was like, "Is the weather always like this?" And it was like more or less. So that's kind of how things projected in terms of my career. And then where you have the whole master's in economics, as I was saying earlier, or I wasn't, essentially, if you're getting your PhD in finance, they force you to take a lot of economics in the first couple of years. So most of your time is being spent at Maxwell. And so instead of going into my last year, they asked me if I wanted to stay one more year to get a PhD in economics. And I was like, absolutely not. It's time for me to get up there and with this accounting degree, accounting finance degree, etc. Did I answer your question? I want to make sure I answered your question.
So it's a nice way of understanding this trajectory. And I always like to dig into this background because a lot of students who apply to business school sometimes tend to think that their previous experience does not count anymore and they need to forget about it and they have to start afresh. So it always is important for me to probe at this level because it's very clearly, it's evident if you look at your track record in terms of you started at a phase where you were interested in information systems, but now you also teach accounting data analytics. So it's related how it comes in that quant background or inclination towards quant and the aptitude towards quant studies, and then brought into general understanding and breadth of the business world. Finance is also a quantitative component, and then how you tie it all together and things just fall into place, right? And so, so your trajectory. Let's stay with the two schools at Syracuse that you went through, right? Yes. So we won't date ourselves, and we won't talk about when you graduated or attended school, but you did go to the Maxwell School of Public Policy and Public Administration. And then you also had experience at the Whitman School of Management. So let's talk about your student experience at Syracuse.
It's weird just because I typically, and sure you know this, going through a PhD, we essentially are not supposed to see the daylight, right? In other words, we get there and we leave late at night. But when I tried to forcefully be part of the community at Syracuse. And what I mean by that is once I got through coursework and moved into dissertation stage, I forcefully I embraced the community. So instead, I would always basically walk downtown just to kind of get a fresh breath of air and et cetera, and saw how vibrant the city was, especially in the summertime. But, my student experience were typical experience. I had to work hard, right? I had to work hard. I had to put in hours. And I also had to make sure that I thought about things in terms of not just getting out, but kind of what is going to be the next phase. And so regardless if you're doing the master's or the PhD, you always have to think about, this is a means to an end, but I want to make sure that I experience and foster this as much as I can, because I'm still learning, right? Me being on this side of the wheelhouse, I'm still learning every single day. I'm still learning my colleagues. I'm still learning about the new interesting students. I mean, surprisingly, we, especially with the cohort that's coming in, it's amazing in terms of the experiences that they have, right? In some cases, they've worked for several years, and because of that, those are the things that kind of make this job and make me being a student, because I'm still a student, because I'm still learning, and you know.
Yeah, so it's sort of going back into, like, your graduate experience. It's do you think from your undergraduate experience to your graduate experience there was a major shift in terms of the amount of focus that you had to have towards coursework and seeing how that leads you to the next phase, as opposed to in undergrad years maybe you had a little more free time, or you had to learn work-life balance? What was the difference, or what were the similarities?
Accountability. Basically, when I was in grad school, it was less hand-holding, more
Yes.
we were forced to essentially communicate and explain our positioning. And that's one of the great unique things that I loved about my faculty here at Syracuse, was they kind of pushed the envelope on me. Instead of me saying, oh yeah, that should be right, and here's the right answer, it's more or less, okay, so why is it the right answer, and why should we care about this? And I think that's the difference between both undergrad and grad. You are essentially a leader. All we're here to do is fine tune your sharp blade, right? We have to get you sharp enough where as soon as you go into the career of your choice, you ultimately can take leadership position immediately. And I think that's the big difference from undergrad and grad. We have to forcefully make sure that once you come here, that you essentially are prepared with the tools, but more or less, you're going to have to be part of the community by basically engaging and communicating and feeling comfortable with your answer. And it's okay. Like in business, I've learned that it's no longer black and white. There's a lot of gray, surprisingly, within corporate America. There's a lot of gray within all realms of life. But I think that's the most important thing. And that's was a shift from undergrad and grad was I was forced to communicate more when I was in grad school, of not just providing with the right answer, but it's basically expanding upon it and thinking of different things in terms of, okay, so if this was to happen, and just think about it from an accounting standpoint, if one number was to be off, what does that mean? And what's the impact? So,
and also, so essentially sort of like, yes, data point, but then also being comfortable explaining your own stance. And if you were to take a stance that was potentially against what was considered to be the norm or so, then you're comfortable enough to explain why, because your environment was collaborative and nurturing enough to allow you to do that.
Yes. And the good thing is, like, I love our faculty here just because they have an opportunity. Some of them have like background and experience within their field. And, I've challenged them, or I've asked them to say, hey, don't just seek the right answer, like, twist it up a little bit, kind of, and you're supposed to sweat in grad school as far as I'm concerned. I think you need to have a sense of being uncomfortable to make you more comfortable in your answer and your delivery of information. And so, I mean, I enjoy it. Like, even for the class that I teach, because I used to teach in the graduate school, I taught data analytics. And so because I would show them how to do it, but then I would basically throw curveballs and I'm saying, okay, so what happens if this was a change? And, it's amazing on how they have to basically expand on their answer right on the point, which, believe it or not, once you get into the corporate setting, you're going to have to do that anyway. So it's kind of like the pre-work boot camp just before the storm comes when you start working.
So I think it's important for us to sort of emphasize that, because we do enroll students from different cultures as well, and then the educational system sometimes is very drastically different. So it could make students really uncomfortable to even speak up in class and share their content or their viewpoint, because that's not what they're used to doing. right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so in that sense, like here we have a panelist who has been in the US educational system, not gone in any other country's educational system, and he himself had to pivot into learning to communicate and, you know, explain his own stance, right? So
Yeah.
you want to elaborate on that? Anything
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. We have a westernized education system. However, I do believe that we're in a global market. And what I mean by global market is I have a tendency, like every year I go to Finland and I'm there for 3 weeks. And so because of that, I conduct business out there all the time. So what's interesting is if you fast forward or go backwards 25 years, that wasn't the case. Because of technology, because of really understanding things with sustainability, really understanding things with AI, that's a global thing. That's not a necessary US or India or China or Africa. That is a global facet. And so because of that, all I want to make sure is I challenge the students to think about it from a global, because business is business. You can always adopt business towards the society or towards the culture that you live in. But at the end of the day, you still got to look at the balance sheet, right? Assets equals liability equals equity. There's nothing you can do, or revenue minus expenses. At the end of the day, that's the bread and butter of language. And so, yes, we think being in, we pride ourselves of being kind of like the innovators of education. However, I would say that, we live in a global environment. And so our goal is, whether the students want to come here in the United States or even decide to basically pivot back to their home country, we want to make sure that we prepare them and give them the tools to be extremely successful in any environment. Let me emphasize that, any environment. That's the goal. Success in any environment, because we're here to create leaders. We're not here to create Western cultured leaders. We're here to create leaders.
Right. We're not doing cookie cutter.
We're not doing cookie cutter at all. At all.
Okay. So let's stay on that topic of your own coursework and your own trajectory for a second, and then say, like, how much of soft skills did you learn?
I think I'm genuinely an extrovert. So from a soft skills though, I learned a lot just because I ultimately learned how to work well with others. I think during my undergrad, I more or less thought I would kind of take the lead, take the role. And then once I started, I interned with a firm, Accenture, throughout my freshman year. And so in my last year, there's a course that I had to take where I had to manage over 59 people. And so some of the soft skills, 59 people in a room, you're going to get a lot of different personalities. And so I think that was my initial standpoint of learning soft skills, just because everyone, it seems like, have a different story. And you have to be very respectful of those stories. And you also have to be very respectful of people's culture as well. And so I think soft skills are essential. You have to have them. And the major reason why you have to have them is, I think, is because you're human. Mm-hmm. And so I think soft skills are mandatory because you're human and we're human. And so because of that, you have to understand people's viewpoint. You have to understand people's culture. You have to understand people's work ethic. And a lot of people don't understand that. Like, soft skills are extremely important. That is what makes us so uniquely different. I deal with your soft skills all the time, Sri, and it is wonderful just because you keep me on my toes, which is a good thing. But it's one of those things that it has to be intentional to really be respectful and understanding exactly all the things you bring and vice versa.
But it's like, so there are 2 points here that I want you to really emphasize, and I want to sort of bring to the forefront. One, when we say, communication is important, and in graduate school, you have to communicate, you have to learn to take your stance, you have to be able to defend your position, all these kinds of things. It's not done with the intention of, putting you in a box, or done with any kind of intention of restricting what you have to say, but rather getting people to become comfortable knowing that this is an unwritten aspect of communication skills, which are not restricted to explaining about your disciplinary content or academic content about finance or just about accounting, but also as a person, how would you operate in a workspace, right? So that's one of the important pieces of this communication that we're talking about, which is not usually mentioned in the classroom per se, but it's unwritten. You have to learn about it. The second,
better be.
yeah,
It
right?
better be. Yeah,
but some people
we
don't
better.
take that. It's like, oh, I have communication skills. I have good written, I have good spoken communication skills. I'm
Gotcha.
ready. No,
Gotcha.
you have to take this into account. The second piece of it with the soft skills is you will be expected, like you said in your training with Accenture or your position there, you have to do this managing, if you will, with X number of people. But there could be times wherein you have to do collaborative work, but you also have to present at a moment's notice. And so I think Whitman's courses are designed in such a way to promote these aspects without actually putting a name to them.
Gotcha.
Would you agree?
I
Or
would
would you
definitely.
disagree?
No.
Whichever stance you take, you can defend it.
No, it's totally fine. I actually agree with that. So what people don't realize is we have a tendency, I think, is just higher education in general. This is just my own personal viewpoint. I think we have a tendency to make things overly complicated when they don't need to be complicated. Because at the end of the day, it's business. And like kind of what you're saying for communication, you have to be able to communicate in a way where it is receptive and people are understanding what you're doing, right? And then in terms of managing, you're going to be able to, because everyone's going to have a different viewpoint, and that's okay. I mean, it's actually welcome, but you're going to have to manage it to the point where you're going to have to synthesize exactly what everyone is saying, just because everyone wants to feel inclusive. Everyone wants to feel part of the team. And so those are the things that we definitely foster here at the Whitman Schools. We genuinely want you to feel inclusive, one, but most importantly, we want your opinion to matter, right? And it's, if you take it a step further, we also want you to basically feel comfortable of being uncomfortable. So if you're coming in and you're uncomfortable of speaking, guess what? Our job in the next 2 years is to get you comfortable to the point that you can articulate your story well enough where it's not just received, but people are fully confident in terms of what you have done. So, but that's one of those things that we all should strive for. I don't think it has anything to do with Syracuse in general. I mean, fortunately at Whitman, we've actually implemented it, but that should be
it's part of our mission statement as well.
Exactly. So those are the two key things that I would say that they really, we want you to be uncomfortable, but our job is to get you comfortable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As you're going in there feeling nervous, guess what? You know what you're doing. We're giving you the tools to be successful. Now it's game time, right? This is your kind of this is your apprenticeship of learning, doing. And then guess what? As soon as we give you the stamp and as soon as we give you the degree, we know that you will hold this big S on your sleeve that we know that they're certified. They're the best of the best. So,
yeah. So let's move from there to that. If people haven't already understood your orange spirit from that, we'll bring them back to it. But let's talk a little bit about your, professional tenure as well, because you not only had corporate experience, but you also had administrative experience in higher education, right? So walk us through how that happened, about your administrative experience at DePaul, and what motivated you to move that side? I mean, yes, you said you wanted someone else's job, because you didn't want to go back into corporate, the environment. But let's walk through. Take us through the chronology.
Job I wanted was literally just to be, honestly, if I'm going to be 100% transparent, the job that I wanted was just to be a faculty member. I did not want
let's talk
to be
about why. What's the motivation?
motivation was it was a way that I could teach, but also it was a way that I enjoyed research. Or at that particular point, I really enjoyed it to the point where it gave me my own personal, I guess, self gratification, right? Now the way I stumbled, and I mean stumbling very, very loosely, the way I stumbled into administration was once I tenured at DePaul, I was literally, I would say honestly, 2 weeks post tenure, and I was thinking about how I could basically expand my travel.
So just for sort of clarity for those who may not understand tenure, so you went to DePaul after your PhD and started out as assistant professor.
Yes.
In
yes.
accounting
I apologize.
and finance,
You're right. There needs to be, yeah, exactly. There needs to be some clarification. So in 2013, I finished with my degree here at Syracuse. My first appointmentship was at DePaul University. I was on their tenure track line, which basically kind of what you alluded to. Is essentially tenure is a way that I guess think about it as like a union. Oh, no, yeah, think about it like a union. Basically, they can't terminate you.
Sort of like getting towards what you start out as an initial career position, job position, helps you progress towards making it a career and becoming permanent at that particular institution.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Try to use the industry terminology, and the only thing I thought about was union. You can't get rid of union employees. So interestingly enough, went there, and then in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, I tenured, and then next thing I know, as soon as I tenured, probably about 3 weeks later, the interim dean, Tom Donnelly, at that point was like, "I got to talk to you," and I'm thinking like, okay, what do I do now? Like, you know, who did I make upset, etc. And so he called our office. He's like, "So we've been talking, and a lot of people want you to be the associate dean." I was like, "No, whoa, no, absolutely, I'm not ready." He was like, "That's exactly why we want you to be the associate dean," because I did a lot of things in terms of I cared so much about not just student placement, but I cared a lot about implementing a lot of experiential learning in the classroom. And so because of that, my whole entire class was based off of experiential learning. And, you know, it's one of those things that I feel like when a student takes my course, and this is for all courses in general, they have to basically I need to get them prepared. I need to get them prepared for the storm. Like theory only takes you so far. But if I know that you're making mistakes, you can learn from those mistakes and not make the same mistakes. And so that's why I implemented experiential learning. Needless to say, I was in charge of curriculum and programs and did that. And then in 2021, our interim dean, Alex, and a few others like Joe Capri that you know, Mike Haney, and a few others asked me to come back to SU. And so the rest is history. And this is my alma mater. So I bleed orange. And so because of that, that's the major reason why I wanted to come back, because I know that we can and we will. You know, I mean that very boldly too. We will become one of the top elite institutions. And I know this is recording on record, so it's fine. We will, and we're going to do it, but we're going to do it together. And it's students like the individuals that are going to be joining us in 2024, in addition to the potentials. That's how we become great, is having them be part of this, or this movement that we're doing here at Whitman.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay, great. So, is there any special message? Actually, let's backtrack for a second. How long have you been associate dean for business education at Whitman, officially speaking?
February 1st.
Okay, so, that's right. February 1st. We share the same start date.
Yeah, so I'm coming on my 5th month.
Okay, so fall 2024 will be your first orientation as associate dean.
Yes.
For the incoming cohort of MBA and MS students at Whitman. Yeah. So do you have a specific message for that cohort incoming in terms of what your hopes, expectations would be for the incoming students, what you would like for them to, you know, think about in terms of, I mean, so let me give you a little bit of a context. Everybody thinks about, you know, an advanced degree is going to get me into this particular type of a job. It's going to get me into this particular destination. I want to go work in this particular company, or I want to live in this particular location, things like that. But outside of all of that, at the very basis, in my humble opinion, I've only been in this role for 10 years, but in my humble opinion, I would say there is always something about a spark at the school that you are going to attend, which hits you at a very emotional level that cannot be quantified. So in that sense, how would you prepare students with your message, those who are incoming? What should they be thinking about? What are your hopes, expectations for them as they prepare to come to Whitman?
Simple. Push the envelope. Don't just come
push the
here.
envelope.
Yeah, push the envelope. Don't just come here just because you like kind of what you said in terms of getting a degree. Like, be different. Like, allow yourself to, if you think something is wrong, or not even wrong, but if you want to be challenged, push the envelope. Try to learn exactly what it is to be a leader. I mean, the good thing is, you know, we're going to be doing a lot of events for our incoming cohort 2024, because this is the revolution of change. And so because of that, I want this new group to come in, push that envelope. Let's be different. Let's be intentional of how we do it. And I think if that is their goal, they're going to be successful. They're going to be successful no matter what. That's, I mean, we vetted them because we know that they're successful. So because of that, we're just here to basically expand on that, expand on their actual intellectual curiosity, but be intellectually curious. Like, you know, if things don't seem right, challenge it. Ask questions. Not just ask questions, but be confident in the questions that you're asking. There are no bad questions, like, period. It's just a matter of let's kind of formalize it in a way where individuals can understand it, and have fun.
So to offer a couple of examples, maybe for those who might still be wondering, like, okay, but this culture is very different. How do I actually go into this? So one example would be open door policy. Pretty much from the dean's office all the way down, it is pretty much open door policy, right? So at the most, we would say request an appointment and just come chat with one of the administrators, not just, you know, those who you take classes with, but feel free to chat with people in the building. That's
absolutely. If my door's open, it's open. It's that simple. It's that simple. It's funny. I'm actually meeting with the student that you brought in, Joshua, at 3:30. I mean, just, it's one of those things that's what we're here for. We're here to basically give an open door policy to basically try our best to help you, not just with your career, right? But also with your life, because we realize that this is a big sacrifice, it's a big commitment. And so because of that, we get it and we recognize it, and etc. But I have to emphasize, I want all these students that are coming in, and even the future students, push the envelope. Like, really be intentional about it, because your successes will be our success.
Yeah.
Bar none.
True. And of course, with that, to also bring back the emphasis to the fact that we are not gatekeepers. We are human as well.
Yes.
And yes, we want to interact, because usually sometimes, have you noticed? I mean, I'm sure, and talking to some of the students, it's like, you know, oh, okay, I'm not here just to give you a grade. I want to just get to know you as a person. It's okay to say hello.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly. So, and I would tell the cohort to do that with their faculty. Like, get to know them, just because you guys are going to be here for a couple of years. So because of that, you guys are going to be our inherited family members.
There you go. And Whitman has always operated as a small family, or as the interim dean likes to say, it's a family business. Yep. Whitman is a small family business, and so we like to know about each other. Absolutely. And so, okay, so any last words that you would want to give to the general audience who have not yet decided whether they want a graduate management education, or they haven't decided about where to go to seek that education. Before we get into, it's not about getting into specifics about like, is this the right school for me? Does the budget fit me and all of that? But in general, business education, why is it important to think about business education? And what would be your message for somebody who's not yet decided on that, on how they should think about business education?
I guess it alludes back to the earlier question you asked. Knowledge is power.
Okay. You want to elaborate?
Yeah. So we're here, or at least think about higher education in general. We're here to basically evolve society. And so because of that, education is the best way to evolve society, or at least it's been documented. It's actually been written. I mean, you could go back to old textbooks in the early BCs, like understanding business not business, but understanding just education in general. It's a way to basically formalize an understanding of creating a society, creating wealth, creating a culture, etc. So, I mean, it's kind of in general, I would say, regardless of whatever program they want to go to, I would say this is an opportunity for you to be part of that evolving door and continuously get better in terms of what you're doing. It's creating that knowledge. So that's why I said knowledge is power. It gives you that power.
Okay.
Hopefully that was good enough. I got me on the spot a little bit.
We will find out pretty soon. Stefania, you want to come back on? Because I think there are quite a few questions here.
Sure.
So if you want to take us through that, we will find out how empowering your talk was.
Yes, so here I am. Thank you a lot. It was really interesting to listen to your stories, and let's see, because we got a few questions. So let's start from this. Hello. What made you feel you had to change your field from architecture to finance?
So when I was a senior architecture, pretty much, I don't know if you guys know how lingo tone works. So I had to design systems. So I worked directly when I was at Accenture. I worked in the, trying to think, the unregulated utilities industry. So deregulation. So essentially we're a company that is regulated. They became deregulated, meaning that there's an open market. And so what I mean by architecture, system architecture, I had to design how the meters and everything were going to communicate with their servers, their infrastructure. So it was a brand new project. And so finance, though, I realized that, again, that's where the money is. And so I assumed that if I knew finance, the other stuff wouldn't matter just because the finance kind of funds those projects. So that's why I kind of pivoted more towards business, is because, and I was just really good at quantitative stuff in general. I just said finance in general. Unfortunately, accounting and finance are related. So that's kind of how I did the major change within that.
I hope your understanding of finance has elaborated since then and has evolved outside of just saying that's where the money is.
Well, the crazy thing though, but believe it or not, we have a tendency to make things complicated. But it's not that complicated. It's simple. It's like, oh, the money. Oh, okay, it's right there. Where do I get the money from? Yes, there's a component that makes it difficult, but it's not difficult, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing. So we also have a question that it's, first of all, a compliment, because they are saying it was a joy meeting Dr. Reddic, especially because I'm an incoming dual degree student, so really good. And they're saying, I'd love to know if Dr. Reddic has anything to share about the differences, similarities between his experiences at the two schools.
DePaul and Syracuse, is that accurate?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Just because it seems like I migrated from
Nashville and Whitman, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I just want to make sure Whitman and DePaul. I think the students here at Whitman are stronger when it comes to aptitude. I would say the key difference is there was probably the students at Whitman tend to be individuals that have more background in terms of business, stronger in terms of test taking standards, and are not geographically constrained.
Well, I think it might help, sorry to butt in, but I think it might help just to set the context in terms of DePaul is more like a regional
It's more
awareness
regional.
university,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
Syracuse, of course, is a global brand. So I
Thank
think
you.
in
Thank
that
you. Thank you.
sense,
Thank you. Yeah, no,
yes.
exactly. So DePaul is more regional. So most of the people that went to DePaul were essentially individuals from the Chicago inland area, maybe Indiana, and the surrounding states. Syracuse is a global brand. And so because of that, you're going to get a gambit of intellectual intelligence, IQ, that are coming here. And so that's the big difference is we're global, as opposed to regional.
Mhm.
The main, and also to me, the Syracuse women students are stronger. They're
Sure.
stronger academically.
I think that can be attributed wholesomely to your bias for SU because you're forever orange, but
Yeah.
but
No,
also,
but I don't mind being transparent, and I don't mind being honest.
No, I know.
I think honestly, the Whitman students are more challenging, engaging, where they're willing to think kind of outside the box. Where I thought at DePaul was not to bash about DePaul, but I thought I was doing more hand holding in the classroom. And so because of that, you know, it's night and day. It's night and day.
And I think it also ties in with when you have the difference between a regionally accredited or regionally aware school, or that has more of a regional focus as opposed to a global focus environment, the demographic that comes into the classroom, their career choices are different. And then their motivations for wanting to pursue their advanced education is also different, right? Like, so in a regional school, it could be just for they already are in a career or they know where they're going within the region. And so they're not going to push that envelope that you're thinking as much as potentially somebody who's going into a bigger global landscape school.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. This was super interesting. And let's dive a bit more with a question that Diana made. So, Willie, why did you choose to study at Syracuse University?
But I bleed orange.
SU.
No, believe it or not, Syracuse wasn't on my radar until the dean, not prior. So Dean Mel Stith, I was on my way to I was either going to go to University of Central Florida or University of Florida. And then literally at the last minute, one of my mentors essentially gave me a call and said, you need to talk to Syracuse, and you talk to Mel. And I was like, I don't know. Anyway, he called me and he flew me out the next day, and the family. I'm big on family. I'm really big on energy. I'm really also huge in terms of, could this place make me successful? Like I'm gonna work hard, but would this place at least put me in the position to be successful? So that's the major reason why I chose Syracuse over the other schools, is because I felt like I had advocates. I felt like I had people that really genuinely wanted me to succeed. Unfortunately, it turned out very, very, very well for myself, but it was one of those things that I felt in my heart. And we're intentional, and Shri will tell you with Shri, Tim, and Mary, they're intentional of your success. They're not just trying to bring you in, but they really they get a euphoria of having you be successful. It's kind of like it's one of those cheese that's saying like, oh my God, they just came here, they didn't know anything, and now they know everything, and now they're successful. That's great. And I think because of that, that's the family focus, as she was alluding to, in terms of we're a family business.
Yeah.
Good to know. So are you happy, Shri, with this answer?
Well, Stefania, would you like to join our family? We will recruit even now. I am ready for it.
I'm gonna think about it. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay, there we go.
Okay, so let's keep going with your personal life. Laura is asking, did you live on campus at Syracuse University, and how it is to live in New York?
When you're in graduate school, you usually don't live on campus, but I live literally up the street in an apartment. Uh, I would say that winters can or cannot be rough. I think what's interesting though, we're in a very unique position. You guys are very familiar with something called global warming. And she would tell you that there have been abnormal, and I mean abnormal, winter days. I mean, to the point, I think we had 3. I think my snow guy came to my house 3 times. That is not like Syracuse. And so I think it's turning I think it's changing. Living directly in New York, I think is put like this. This is probably the best opportunity to live, not just in New York, but central New York. Here's why. It's because there's a company by the name of Micron, and I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar. They're global. Their corporate headquarters are leaving from Boise, Idaho, and the Bay Area, and they're moving everything, and I mean everything, here to Syracuse, which is the best opportunity for our students right there, just because essentially they can move in. And our executive dean, vice chancellor, Mike Haney, he basically is the one who brokered the deal. And we have exclusive partnerships with Micron, the Whitman School. And so, and other engineering schools, but we at least basically have a seat at the table, which I'm kind of happy about, and they genuinely want our students. So that's a great thing. Fortune 500 companies are kind of hard to come by the way, for change their corporate headquarters. It's very, very difficult.
But personally, also, like you raise a family here in Syracuse.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk
exactly.
about your personal experience a little bit?
Sure. So I met my wife here. That'll tell you something. That's how clearly I love this place. And so one of those things, moving back here, my wife and I thought about it from, a family. We wanted our daughter to basically grow around her cousins. We wanted our daughter to basically know what it's like to be involved in the growing process of family. And so, it was kind of a no-brainer. So, I mean, a lot of people like New York City. New York City is its own different thing, but I would say Central New York is changing. In my opinion, just because I was here just 10 years-ish ago, and the infrastructure and change that I've seen over the last decade, it's been pretty interesting, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Super nice. Thank you. So we talk a bit about what makes Syracuse different from other schools, but they are asking, how does it feel studying at Syracuse University?
Well, that's you. You went to school here. I didn't.
Honestly, here's what's so unique, I think, Syracuse compared to a lot of institutions. So I also went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, to receive my master's in finance. Here, you have an opportunity to hone in your entrepreneurship idea, and don't have to necessarily. The repercussions of putting in your own money. You don't. I mean, you have to worry about it, but not to the point where if you have a creative, innovative idea, our dean, Alex McKelvey, has some initiatives, dean entrepreneurship initiatives, and the students went from $5,000 to $25,000 to kind of work in developing their own business ideas. We have something called Innovate SU. And those are other things where we get like the computer engineering school to come and essentially work with our entrepreneurship students in business. And so because of that, it's one of those things, like, you may leave out of here a multimillionaire as you're going as you're obtaining your degree, just because you could have a very great idea that essentially you could beta test it here. Does that make sense? So you can kind of have that opportunity if something was to go wrong, you still are leaving here with a fine degree and you'll be prepared for leadership. But a nice backdoor prize is you basically become a multimillionaire, and we're definitely going to be
let's temper that a bit and put it in context, okay? So essentially, I'll speak a little more about this because it's from the recruiting perspective, or just like the other program perspective. There is opportunity for all students at Whitman to participate in business plan competitions, and those are some of the ones that Willie's referring to with respect to the award money of whether it's $5,000 or up to $25,000. You can participate in different case competitions or business plan competitions, both held at Whitman as well as at the larger university through the Blackstone Launchpad. Right? The Blackstone Launchpad is more of an opportunity for students, not just from Whitman, but from other schools on campus as well, to network. And you don't necessarily have to only be an entrepreneurship student. You could be a student in any specific program, but with an entrepreneurial idea. Or you could also network with students from other schools and form a team and come up with an idea and take that ahead. But outside of that, the other piece that I would want to say, which would help people think about how are we different from other schools. So one of the things that our interim dean, Alex, had come up with a few years ago was this notion of industry requirements. And this has always been Whitman's standpoint, that we want to create people who are ready for industry. And we want to, have our experiential learning experiences mimic that to prepare you for industry. So he came up with what is called the Whitman Industry Readiness and Excellence Initiative, the WIRE initiative. So students can identify certifications, for example, in particular areas that are relevant to their particular discipline. Project management professional, PMP, for example, or which is for a lot of students who go into project management, supply chain. You could do analytics related certifications. You could get Excel certified without absorbing the cost, because Whitman will absorb the cost. So there are a lot of these initiatives that prepare students for professional certifications, wherein the cost is taken by the senior management, dean's initiatives, and it's built into our administrative cost, but the student gets the opportunity to state their reason for wanting to pursue a particular certification and then seek scholarship once they complete the certification towards paying for that, right? Because these payment costs to initially sign up for the certification are pretty exorbitant. I was trying to find another nice word.
Awesome.
So it's really something, so in that sense, it ties in back with, if we're a small family business that's operating with looking at becoming cost effective for all stakeholders involved, then what's the maximum gain, right? And so this is one way that we help our students take advantage of, and there's no limit to the number of certifications that you can earn. That's the other beauty of it. So it's not limited to, you're studying supply chain, you can only do one certification. No, if you want to do supply chain analytics and target positions as a supply chain analyst, maybe you want to get one for analytics and one for PMP. Why not? So I think that's the beauty of it. So
just a small expand on that, and a lot of the faculty are basically implementing certifications within their coursework as well. So perfect example, my students, when I taught, they have to go through data analytics, but they get a micro certifications in Alteryx, which is the leading industry standards for data analytics, and I know other classes are doing Tableau. So
yeah,
it's one of those things that the students will leave there not just with a grade, but they'll also leave with a certification as well, or a micro certification.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Perfect. Good to know for our students here. So let's keep going, talking about work life, because, for example, Carlo is asking, did you always want to become a professor?
No, he was going to become a person earning a lot of money with finance.
Yeah. Nope, didn't always want to become a professor, but I honestly say that it helped the fact that I had a lot of disconnected professors in my undergraduate experience that helped initiate the stance of me saying, I think I could do this, but do this a little bit better. So no, I didn't always want to become a professor, but I always wanted to make change. And I feel through education, higher education, I honestly believe that I could be a portion of the change for the betterment of society. So that's why.
Thank you, really. And then another question is, if you had to do a top 3 ranking of the most valuable soft skills in the job market in general, what would you choose?
She said 2 of them.
Don't take up my
Communication.
answers. Come up with your own.
Yeah, I have to.
No plagiarizing here.
Look, I believe in not reinventing the wheel, Sheree. But I think communication, managing, and agility. You have to be nimble. You have to be nimble in this environment. And so because you have to be nimble, you have to be willing to know that change comes. Right, Sheree?
Well, I would say resilient.
You have to be resilient, but you have to be adaptable, and you have to be agile. I mean, it's an ongoing thing. The stuff that I guarantee you, as soon as we get off this call, probably going to be flooded with a lot of emails of things pertaining to how things can change or something probably changed, etc. And we're in a global environment now where things within a nanosecond change immediately. So those are the 3 things: communication, agility, resilient, kind of yours. Those are I think the soft skills that you need to have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So time is running, but you still have time to make the final questions if you want. Meanwhile, I'm going to read the last question for Shri. Diana is asking us, do you offer scholarships?
Yes, we do. And these are automatic consideration depending on the program that you're applying for, whether it's an MBA or a specialized master's program. It is purely merit-based candidacy, merit-based scholarship based on your candidacy. So you feel free to email me separately if you want specific questions, or you could email the generic email account, which is busgrad@syr.edu. I will throw it here in the chat box. And my colleague is also on this call. So even though that I have given you this, you can review our website. You can get an understanding of our program requirements, our application criteria. And I would say wait until end of July and check again, because if there are any updates that we do at the end of every year after internal review, then we do update the website. So feel free to review and then schedule a meeting and reach out and ask us questions. And even if you don't see any button to say schedule a meeting, you could write in and say, can I chat with somebody? Or you could say you want to chat with me. And we can then schedule a meeting accordingly and take it through based on your particular candidacy, understand what you are seeking, and take it from there.
Okay, so I guess that we are done. So thank you so much to all of you and to our panelists to be with us today. And thanks to everyone to join our webinar, to have been so curious and responsive with all your questions. So I hope that we reach our goal and that you learn a lot from the webinar made in collaboration with Syracuse University. So I'd like to remind you that you can receive more information writing at the email that you see in the chat that Shri just put it for you. And if you're interested in receive our certificate of attendance, you can click in the link that I'm sending right now in the chat. Here you have. And also keep in mind that we will share the recording with you in the following days. So please keep an eye on your email. I would also ask our panelists if you want to leave a final message before saying goodbye to our students.
Be different, be orange.
I think you're changing the tagline here. It's like, be orange, be Whitman.
Women, yeah. Or what I mean by orange, subliminal
Yeah.
message. It's I didn't do well in marketing, by the way. I probably should leave. But no, seriously. If you want to be part of the family, we want you to be part of the family. So it's that simple.
It's been a pleasure, Dr. Lee and Stefania. Thank you again for yet another successful collaboration. I hope the audience found it useful. So please, those of you who are part of our incoming cohort, we're looking forward to you. I recognize quite a few names in the attendee list today. So send me an email. Let me know if you like this session, if you would like to see more webinars like this, and what kind of topics you would like us to address. And then I will just send them all to Willie and have him do them. That's my job. Thank you very much.
No, it was a pleasure. Well,
Thank you.
Can't wait to see you guys in the fall.
All right.
And,
take care.
and for the individuals that can't wait to see you in the future fall. So
here we go. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
You too.